Hey folks, BlackCross here. It has been a while since I've done a discussion video. Mostly because news around this time of year tend to slow down. And by slow down, they tend to slow down dramatically. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about a rumor type collection thing that may or may not exist. I don't know. As far as everyone knows, it's practically just a rumor. But I won't hold Square Enix accountable of this if it ends up being true. Because honestly, this is actually a good idea for both fans of the series and new upcoming players. And with Final Fantasy 15, at the beginning of the game, it says, a Final Fantasy for fans and first-timers. This would be the perfect ideal to start selling your franchise. So, basically, according to the rumor itself, it is stating that Square Enix is actually planning on releasing a collector set of the Final Fantasy franchise. Now, before we go into depth as to what that collection set is, let me go ahead and say that next year is a big year for gaming. Number one being that it's the 15th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts, while on the other hand, it is the 30th anniversary for the Final Fantasy franchise. That's right, Final Fantasy 1 came out 30 years ago as of 2017. That is an insane year right there. To know that it's been 30 years since Final Fantasy has started up and we're on a 15th installment of the main franchise series. Now there are rumors saying that it could be the last game of a number set, but it's not going to be the last Final Fantasy game to be out there. And honestly, I doubt that that they would stop making Final Fantasy games, but they would stop at a number. As to what number that was, no one knows. For all we know, it might be 15. For all we know, it could be an up-and-coming 16 number. We don't know. We just know that, according to rumors say, is that 15 is the last number entry for Final Fantasy. Considering the fact that every new entry number is just in a total reset of a Final Fantasy story. So with that said, the collection set itself is going to be containing Final Fantasy 1 and up to, up to 9 for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita, both single disc and card. Now that is insane, but at the same time really, really good. I think what it is they're trying to do, they're also trying to push sales for the PS Vita, because much like with the PlayStation 3 and the PSP, back when PlayStation 1 games were coming out and everything like that, they had this trend where if you downloaded the game, you had access to an ability of what they called a cross savings. Now this was supposedly how cross platforming worked when PS4 and PlayStation Vita started to get really, really big. But instead, you had to buy both versions. In previous cases, all you had to do was to download the game once onto the PlayStation 3 or PlayStation Vita, and then you could transfer that same game program onto both systems. And then afterwards, all you had to do was to transfer the save file from one console game to the next console game, and therefore you could play that same game and have the same progression profile. It still works the same way today, except for some reason you had to buy both versions of the game, which I thought was really dumb in my personal opinion. And that's kind of like why I never really bought the PlayStation Vita, was because of the fact that if I wanted to play a game that I had on the PlayStation 4 or something like that, that means that I had to literally buy a PlayStation Vita just to where I could be able to do that. That means I actually had to buy the game twice. And I rarely, if that, I never do that. especially with today's case. I never really rebuy games nowadays, especially if I've already had it previously on another console or something like that. But with this collection set, if it is true that they are going to do a PlayStation 4 / PSV set type release and everything like that, it may actually increase sales tremendously. Now, personally, I think they would do something a little bit differently. I think that they would have two different sets. They would have the PS4 set, and then they would have separately a PS Vita set. Because chances are, they're trying to push that sale even more so. And in all honesty, I think a lot of people can see the uses of both. Because you have the console player, like myself, who prefer console gaming. But then you got the more extreme gamers out there who prefer both PS4 and PS Vita, because then they can play the game on their console, and then if they have to go somewhere, they can transfer the save data on over to the PS Vita, and then therefore they can play the same game and have the same progression that they've been going through so far without having to start a whole new profile. Now, along with this release particular set, it also stated that Final Fantasy 1 through 6 would have two versions, the original and the, according to what it quotes, the modern port, which I assume means the American release. Now, this is both a good and at the same time a confusing statement, because a lot of fans don't know this, but only the hardcore fans do. Final Fantasy has had a rough record of number tracking. I don't know what it was or what happened, but apparently one of the Final Fantasy titles got released in America, but another one never got released, period. For example, there's probably a reason why most people were saying, okay, something ain't right here, we're missing a Final Fantasy game. That's because over in America, here that is, we made the mistake of making Final Fantasy 4 Final Fantasy 3. How we made that mistake, I will never know. And then, if that's not the case, there have been alterations to the game itself to where that way it would be playable to its audiences. See, Final Fantasy is a little bit less censored as the game continues forward. In fact, I'm sure a lot of people probably noticed that feature probably right around, I want to say, Final Fantasy 6 and Final Fantasy 7. But I think Final Fantasy 6 was censored enough to where it wasn't noticeable. Whereas Final Fantasy 7, there are slight noticeable sayings in the game itself that are suggestive, or for that matter, highly, what's the word I'm looking for? Highly, more curse words, I suppose you could say. More foul, that's the word I'm looking for. But with the earlier titles, they have been altered to where they could be released to American audiences. And for some reason, America does that all the time. Whenever Japanese port games comes out, we feel like we have to alter it to where that way it could be suitable for players. Even though there's a reason why the whole rated E, rated T, rated M exists. Although there are some games out there that kind of need a better tracking of rating. But that's my opinion, and honestly, I can't decide what goes and what doesn't work. Point is, though, is that Final Fantasy 1 through 6, if this does happen, will end up having its own two versions. The original Japanese version, and then the modern version that we fucked up on. Now, this one, in all honesty, I don't see happening, but it's part of the article itself. And I'm going to try to read it all to you, because this is the part where things will get hectic. So hang on tight, and I'm going to try to decipher what they're actually going for. So here we go. There will be 3 versions of the Final Fantasy collection. Regular version, games and poster, which is basically the regular release. You'll get like a small poster or something like that comes with it and everything along with the game itself. Collector's edition, game poster, art book, 8-bit Black Mage keychain, Chocobo plush with 2 discs with a selection of songs chosen by Nobuo Usatoi. If I mispronounce that name, I do apologize in advance. But what that means is that other than getting the game and the poster, you're also going to be getting an art booklet, you're getting a little keychain, and a plush that's holding a 2-disc CD set of certain select songs from the game franchise themselves. Then you have the Crystal Complete Edition, and it's a limited run that can only be bought from Square Enix's main website itself. Now, the next section I'm confused at because it doesn't mean anything. And by mean anything, I mean it doesn't tell me what I'm looking for. Like, is it... I'll read it real quickly and then I'll try to decipher what it means. But there's 2 paragraphs. Games. Final Fantasy 30th Anniversary Collection titles Final Fantasy 1 to 9, Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2 HD, Final Fantasy 12 The Zodiac Age, Final Fantasy 13 Trilogy, Final Fantasy 15, and all DLC, the Final Fantasy 14 A Realm Reborn, including all expansions, plus a 3-month subscription, special items for Final Fantasy, thinking that's 11, mobile, and Final Fantasy 14 will be included as well. So, here's what I don't understand out of this one. Is it meaning all of that combined together? Or are they talking about, like, individual, like, release sets? Because that sounds more correct to me. But they've already released Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD already. Like, it's already been released a while ago. In fact, it was already released a while ago along with the PS Vita version. So it's like, why are they talking about like this? Because technically that's already released. Are they already doing a re-release after a re-release? And mind you, it's not a new console re-release. It's just, well, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they're doing it. Because of the whole 4K resolution for the Pro or something like that. Maybe that's why. But I find that to be pointless in all honesty. But then they've also got the whole Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. Which, again, that's a big shocker to me. That they would actually go as far as to make a trilogy release set. Then again, the Assassin's Creed Accessio set has been released. So that's something not done before. It's been done before. And unfortunately, it is repetitive as all shit. Now, on the other hand, I can definitely see the Zodiac Age because it has been a big talk about for quite some time. A lot of players are excited about this. I know that I definitely do plan on getting it whenever I get a chance to because it features the Japanese version release that we never got again. But with that said, that is good to know. And then, of course, they do plan on doing like a somewhat re-release for the Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn and stuff like that. Now, the last section where it says special items for Final Fantasy XI Mobile and Final Fantasy XIV will be included as well. What I don't get is this. It says Final Fantasy XI. 11 was originally released for PS2 and Xbox. I want to say Xbox, the first Xbox, or it was Xbox 360. I don't remember when it was. But when it came out, it was very, very low rated. Like, it went under the radar, and I think a lot of people just lost interest in it completely. But then again, Final Fantasy XIV succeeded in this because of today's time, and it was able to do really, really well. But unfortunately, because of it being an MMO, I never really picked up on it, in all honesty. I didn't. But the fact that it comes out and it gets a 3-month subscription for PlayStation Plus members, I think that's pretty good to have right there. But like I said, it doesn't really define if they're individual releases or if they're all in one collection set. Considering the first couple paragraphs they were talking about the 30th anniversary collection set, I think they're individual releases, which means we're going to get a release. We're going to get another re-release of 10 and 10-2 HD. We're going to get a re-release of Final Fantasy 13 Trilogy. A re-release of Final Fantasy 15 with all the DLC included, which, go fucking figure. And then, of course, Realm Reborn, blah, 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 blah. Basically, any up-and-coming Final Fantasy game that comes out, there is going to be a regular version, a collector's version, and a Crystal Complete Edition version. Boy, I'm tired. Now, it also states physical items. All the content included in the collector set, 2 extra discs for the soundtrack, a crystal necklace, a Moogle plush, a black mage statue, all 3 Final Fantasy trading card games, starter decks, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy 15 and Brotherhood, Final Fantasy 15, everything will be packed in a luxury chest decorated with the Final Fantasy logo. Just to clarify, these plans just apply to North America. We don't know yet about other regions. Now, that I am very doubtful of, because while admittedly I would actually like to get something like that type of collection set actually sounds really awesome. But in all honesty, I don't see that happening. And here are reasons why I say I doubt that's going to happen. To me, to release a set like that, I think that would be a little bit more expensive than Final Fantasy 15 Ultimate Collector's Edition. Now, that's not to say I don't deny it. I'm just saying that seems to be a lot of work that Square Enix is going to have to do. Then again, it will be limited quantities. But also, yet again, that also means that the pre-order is going to be just like it was with Final Fantasy 15. Being that you're going to be waiting for a long ass time before you get any form of notice. So, overall, we don't know when any of this is going to be. Because see, the next final paragraph is what it states here, so give me just a sec. Okay, this section basically states Season Pass. Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age, Final Fantasy Tactics, The War of the Lions, and Chrono Trigger could be released on Steam before the end of 2017. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 15 are coming to PC, but likely not until early mid-2008. Now, the first part of that is very comforting for me because it means that a lot of Final Fantasy fans are actually going to be able to play a Steam version of these title games onto their computer. A lot of people have been asking about that, wondering, are we going to get something like that? And apparently they're basically saying, yes, you will get it 2017. And that's really exciting. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 15 are coming to PC, and that's really good news because a lot of people have been asking, is 15 going to be on PC or not? And it looks like it is, but they're saying it won't be until early to mid 2018, which means a lot of people are going to have to wait an extra year. But I say by then, at least the gameplay and all the bugs and stuff like that have already been properly fixed and everything like that. So by that point, it will be a little bit better experience for PC gamers. Now, to restate back to the whole Final Fantasy 1 to Final Fantasy 9, if this ends up being true, I actually like this idea. I really do, because that means that you get all Final Fantasy games onto one console alone. So that's a really good deal in all honesty, and that's 1 through 9. And that's great. So, if they end up doing this, I do hope they have a feature to where, because see, here's the funny thing. Final Fantasy VII has already been released on PS4, and so far it's the only one. And the one feature that it had that I had noticed was that it had a fast forward system. And by fast forward, I mean it basically speeds the game up into a little bit more of a high speed fast forward type thing. And that's really good, because that helps out in terms of like farming, that helps out in terms of like being able to get through the game and combat and stuff like that. It's a little bit better to have that particular feature where it actually speeds up the game. And I do hope that all of them have this feature in it, because that would definitely make me happy, and I know a lot of other players would definitely enjoy this one mechanic that they implement in all of the other titles. That would really be good. But as far as we know, in terms of like if this is true, when is it going to be released? From the way it sounds like they're trying to work towards 2017, which is, after all, the 30th anniversary of Final Fantasy 15, and that's thus the reason why it's called Final Fantasy 30th Anniversary Collection Set. And I hope it does get confirmed, because that would be awesome. That would literally be an amazing set right there. But I just felt like talking about this particular rumor set, considering the fact that I'm playing Final Fantasy 15, and it is a Final Fantasy type discussion, and we really don't know anymore as far as it being just a rumor. But the second it becomes confirmed, I will be doing an update video to say, hey, this is where you can purchase it, it's going to be coming out in such and such date, so on and so forth. But anyway though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Take care, guys.